Well, hi guys, and welcome to day 3 of our Kingdom Finance webinar. Hope you guys are enjoying everything that we're putting out there. Today we are getting practical. It's amazing how our spiritual lives are so connected to the practical decisions that we make. And today I'm talking with my friend, Joel Stevens, who is with us today. Joel is an independent financial advisor. He's a man that is not only in like the financial world, but he's really passionate about seeing people live full, generous and impactful lives. And it's a real privilege to have him with us today. So let's get straight into it. Here is Joel. Hey, Joel. How you doing, mate?
Morning. Hello. How are you? Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, mate. Really.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be with us. It's great. And
good.
We've got a whole load of questions for you, mate, you know, so
go for it. No, that's fine. Not a problem. I'll do what I can.
We're pulling on everything that you know today.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to work you hard.
that is all right. Let's go for it.
I think I first I mean, we may have bumped into each other at different conferences and things over the years, but I think I first kind of noticed you from your Instagram because I suddenly saw this guy who was posting this brilliant stuff on how to win with money and talking about setting goals and stuff. And I thought, who's this? And then I realized you were part of the church in Coventry with Matthew.
Yep.
And I've always wanted to get a conversation with you because, as I say, you've posted some really cool stuff. But let's just get straight into it. I think the first thing I want to ask is, how did you end up working in finance? And how long have you been doing that? And why? Well, yeah, let's start off with that. How long have you been doing it, and how did you get into it?
Good. Yeah, good question. The straight answer is I was destined to be here and I chose the profession from the beginning of my childhood, which is the lie that I tell everyone. That's not true. I originally started life, I've always wanted to be a musician.
Oh, wow.
Ever since I have, been able to, I started learning instruments when I was about five or six. So that's been the pull on my life ever since. And I've aimed my life in that direction pretty much to the detriment of everything else. So that's the way I went in my life.
Oh.
And
what was it you played? What was it you played, Joel?
Drums is the instrument of choice for me. That's
Brilliant.
the thing that I love to do.
Wow.
I sort of dabbled in others growing up, but drums is the one that stuck because it's, in my opinion, just the coolest.
Cool.
And I basically just worked my way to try and get to the point where I wanted to be a professional musician and make that leap. So the reason why I'm in Coventry is because I studied music here, and you know, I was gearing my life up that way.
Yeah.
And
wow.
A few years ago, so I've been doing financial advice as a both training and doing the job for about 4 years now.
Okay.
And the point just before that of sort of making the leap from music to finance, which sounds like a bit of a weird one,
crazy,
was that Matthew Ling, who you mentioned earlier, the elder of our church, and Paul Sheffield, another elder of our church here in Coventry, on separate occasions just came to me and said, have you heard of financial advice? And I hadn't at all. I didn't know it was a thing, didn't know it was a job, didn't know anything about it. And they said, well, we really feel like you should look into that and just see what that's about. Something about it might sort of connect with you. So I did. I looked into it, and I did some research, contacted a few advisors locally to me that I knew were Christians as well, and just sort of said, what is this financial advice stuff about? I sort of searched what is financial advice and figured it out. And I had some good input from some advisors in various locations in the country, and just decided to start training for it. So I thought I'd dip my toe in the water and do a couple of qualifications and just see if I enjoyed it. And I absolutely love it. It was the weirdest thing. It was like this whole world that opened up that I never knew existed. Wow. And so I got a job at a training company, did that for a couple of years, and then got offered a position with a guy called Phil Chapman, who is one of the elders of Market Harbour Church, the Living Rock, who we're also connected with. who, funnily enough, I realized when we emailed the first time when I was put in touch with him, he was one of the advisors that I emailed at the very, very beginning.
Find out about
a sort of a random stab in the dark just to
no
see
way.
what advice was like. Yeah, so we
Cool.
sort of reconnected, I guess.
That's cool.
And I've been working for him now, for the last couple of years. So really, really enjoy it. Absolutely love the whole world of finance. Is just fascinating. It comes with a load of intriguing baggage as well, my career, but it's just a load of really good stuff to get stuck into. That like I said, I sort of did a complete turn from music. I mean, I still play drums and stuff, but I've financial advice is now the main thing that I do. So absolutely love it.
I think that's just such a cool story because I just love as you said, you can't get much different really to being like a
not really
drummer to turning around to the finance world. Like that's mad. It's very cool though. So and what I love about what I've noticed from yourself is just how passionate you are about all of, as you say, the financial world. You say then that you just absolutely just love it. Why are you so passionate about it, man? Like what is it that just grabs you with it?
I think it's just the idea that money comes into contact with every area of our life and society. Pretty much. There's not really an area. I mean, there's probably a few, but for the majority of life, money and your life are just combined, and it will touch every area. And so what I really enjoy about my job is I speak with a lot of people and talk around their money and what's the best way to plan it and how do we get from this position to that position in life and all those kind of things. And what I really love is it's not really the numbers and the money at all. It's sort of the life behind that the money then influences, touches, is a tool to be used with. And that's the bit that I find fascinating. So the stuff about investing and saving and all of that is really good and practical ways to ultimately impact the life that you have and want to live and feel cool to live and all of that good stuff. So that's why I enjoy it. It's and that's I think the thing that I spotted through learning and coming into the sort of financial advice world was just that part is not often focused on. It's often a lot about what's the best savings account, how do I handle my money, and that's really practical stuff, but the touch point behind that is the thing that I just really, really enjoy talking to people about. So
that's amazing. I think that's one of the big things that we're learning like over these few days when we're looking at finance afresh, is just how, like you said, it's not all necessarily about the money, but it's more about things, a life behind that, and it's just we're just seeing that all the time through everything that we're talking about. So I mean, I'm going to really just get straight in there and say, what are your top kind of 3 tips, or what's your main advice, if you like, for how to win with money? And I guess it kind of links into what you were saying before then, just about how it's not necessarily about all the investment and the credit cards, but it's about maybe a motivation behind it.
You're spot on. I probably would say that winning with money, if you want to call it that, or being successful with it, managing it well, doesn't really, and I'm learning this as well. This is a daily learning thing for me as well, because obviously money is always changing, always shifting, always going in and out of your life, and the applications of it are always very different. But winning with money and being successful with it is way more about how you think and your viewpoint on it than it is around necessarily the budgeting and the figuring out that stuff out. I mean, they are great tools to be used. So if I was going to say 3 things that I think actually really contribute to that, one is, from a Christian perspective, an understanding and a starting point that everything that we have is God's. And you might have touched on that in your sessions. But the idea that, and the reality that actually everything that we own is a gift and is not ours to be, so I'm living in a house that technically I'm on the mortgage for and I own it, but it's not actually mine. It's actually God's, that he's entrusted to me to look after. And so the number one thing, that the sort of foundation is that is the starting point. And if that is your starting point, then that should radically alter all the other decisions, because spending decisions are sort of spiritual decisions, and how you earn money matters then, and how you look after it and handle it all matters. So things like tithing, which again you may have covered, so that then becomes of importance rather than a little aggravational thing that you have to do. It's like, okay, well, this is a principle then, and I'm better off with 90% than I am with 100, because ultimately if I give some to God, it's his money anyway. So if it's all his, that's our starting point. That's for me is step one. I'd have said.
It's good. That's good.
And so that's probably number one. The second one is trying to have an eye on the balance between short-term and long-term is the key as well. So having a long-term perspective when it comes to money always helps. So short-term decisions generally mean that we make decisions in the moment that we don't quite calculate the impact down the road. So we might spend a whole load now, but haven't thought about the future, or we might earn a whole load right now because that's what we need, but ultimately that could be at the cost of something longer term, or building something longer term. So there's that, having one eye on the present because you want to make sure that's okay, but also looking forward to the future and preparing for that in a wise way is also a tricky balance, because if you spend it all now, you've got nothing left. But if you save everything for the future, well, actually we've been given money to both use now and give now and invest into things now. So you also then miss out on that dimension as well. So it's that balance is a tricky one, but one that through careful, I guess, proactive planning, you can do your best at any given moment. It's a bit like a seesaw; it will come up and down at any given point. But so I'd say that's probably number two.
I'll just jump in there on that point, because that is that is massive, because I think we live in this world, don't we, where there is this kind of culture of have everything now, and focus on the now,
absolutely.
And especially for I don't know, can we call ourselves young men? I don't know, but especially for a younger generation, do you know what I mean? People aren't often thinking about what's going to happen in 30, 40 years down the road, It's and I think, just the way everything is online now, it's all instant, do you know what I mean? And even just everything is now, do you know what I mean? You click a button and nowadays on Amazon, you can get it delivered within the day, do you know what I mean? It's just crazy. So this whole kind of what you're saying is quite radical, really, of just getting that balance right between having a long-term planning, basically, and thinking about the long term, which not many people do nowadays. It's really interesting. Very good.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Cool. What's number three, man? I'm loving this.
I'd probably say, and this one is a bit more money based. The foundation of any success with money, in terms of building towards something or growing money towards something, or even things like paying down debt, any of that, any sort of steps forward with money, depends on the ability. And it's quite simple to say, fairly tricky to do often at times, but it's to have margin in your financial life, and that is spending less than you earn.
Right.
So that might sound really common sense, but the idea that actually, I guess there's one of three options. If a month goes by and you've got money coming in and money going out, and you look at the balance between those things, you might have no money left, say, so you're spending everything you earn, in which case you're it's okay, but you're not doing anything. It's just sort of all being consumed. But you're not necessarily impacting yourself negatively in the current present. You might have less money, so you might actually be spending more than you earn, in which case you're sort of digging yourself a hole financially that then you can't go. You've got nothing left. You can't go anywhere with it. You can't give to anything above what you're spending. You can't invest in anything. You can't plan for a holiday. All of those things, from short term to long term, you can't really do if you're spending more than you earn, because you're sort of going backwards. The only really way that happens is if you have money left over that you're not choosing to spend today, and you're going to say, okay, I'll probably spend it, but I'm going to spend it a year from now, 5 years from now, 30 years from now. That is when I'm going to choose to spend that money. It's not necessarily about saving for the sake of saving, but it's the single most effective tool to be able to go anywhere with your finances, is the ability to live below your means, to spend less than you earn, and then put that gap which I call the margin, your financial margin, to good use. So that could be paying down debt. That's one good use. It's productive. Could be giving it away. Could be saving. But it's the ability to be able to order your finances in the way that you are doing that and know that you're doing it. That's the other thing, is to make sure that you're sort of living in that space.
That's amazing. That is really good. It's so funny, isn't it, how a lot of these things on one hand seem so simple, but at the same time, I'm learning that get the simple things right in life and it makes a huge difference, you know? And for some people, you know, to us, it may seem like common sense, do you know what I mean? To spend less than what you're earning. But for other people, it's like, oh, wow, I've never even, you know, thought of that before.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff, man. I love it. So you talked there quite a bit about making goals and, you know, planning ahead. When it comes down to like budgeting,
what a boring word.
I was just thinking that as I said it. I thought, for a lot of people, they're going to roll their eyes at the whole thought.
Oh, great! Someone's going to make me budget. Yeah.
And you know, for the whole thing of budgeting and so forth, is that something that you think that everyone should do, or is it just for those that are? I mean, I enjoy it because I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to things like that, you know. And my wife Kate, she'll tell you that you know, I get really into all of that and my spreadsheets and my sitting down and saying what we got going on. But is that something that everyone should do when it comes to handling their finance, in your opinion, or what do you think?
Yeah, the thing when we talk about budgeting for me is less around the actual exercise. So no, I'm not going to advocate that budgeting is a great way to spend your Friday night. That's not like, I don't think anyone's making that argument, unless, like you say, you're that way inclined. And
just for the record, I don't do it on a Friday night.
Hey, you know, and if you do, that's fine. But I think that there's this idea that budgeting is this. It's something you're told to do, and it feels like, oh, I have to do it. It's this exercise that adults should do, therefore I should probably just do it. The thing for me is that it's actually not really about that, the budgeting bit. It's what that gives you, and what budgeting gives you is clarity around where you currently stand financially. So, you know, if I said about your margin is important because that's a way to be productive with your finances, then you need to know where that balance is. You need to know if you've got more coming in than you've got going out, in which case you can put some to good use. You need to know if you're spending more than you've got. The amount of people I meet that have no idea. It's like, well, I think maybe I've got a bit left over. Well, how much? Well, I don't know. So knowing the clarity that comes from budgeting, because all budgeting really is, all you're talking about is lining up what you've got coming in, what you've got going out, and seeing what the difference is, seeing where that fits. And like I said, the best case is you're spending less than you've got going out, so then you can have a discussion around, well, where does the rest go? And if you're consciously doing that, you are then making proactive decisions based on a clarity around your money that if you don't have, it's all just guesswork. And so a lot of stress and anxiety around money comes from the idea that you don't know where you just don't know what's going on. And so there's fear around, well, do I have enough money for that? Or I don't want to talk about it and I'm just going to avoid it. Or, you know, all these reactions that we have. Money can be a really emotional thing. It's quite tied to our emotions a lot of the time, or our past, our future, our experiences. We sort of attach a whole load of meaning around money, and we're all different. So budgeting, I think, is essential for everyone in some form. So it can be literally a piece of paper. What have I got coming in? What have I got going out? Do a bit of maths. Great. It can be a spreadsheet that does it for you. It can be an app. So I personally use an app. An app called Ynab. It stands for You Need a Budget. It's its name. And it's not particularly special. I mean, I use it, but there's lots of other different app-based softwares out there that you can use. It doesn't really matter the method as such. You can make it as complex or as simple as you really want, but the underpin of it all is the thing that it gets you wherever you're at in your money. If you've not got very much, or if you've got, you know, way beyond what you need, is an awareness and a clarity of your financial situation that empowers you to make proactive decisions around either changing or enhancing, or, you know, making movements forward in that.
That is so good, mate. That is so good. I just think that's brilliant. I mean, that was one of the things that I grew up on, was kind of, it's okay to spend money or do what you want with money, but so long as you know exactly what you have, then you said you can then make wise decisions with it. And I think, like you're saying, like that's how people get you. I mean, you tell me, but I presume that's how people get into a lot of financial difficulty, is like you're saying, when they're just totally unaware of what they have, you know?
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, this is a great link now really into credit cards, because nowadays, again, in the world we're living in, it's just, we are bombarded with this attitude of you can buy now and pay later. And, you know, companies are just throwing credit cards at people. It's just so easy to get hold of money or
it is,
whatever. And so what are your thoughts on credit cards? You know, are credit cards totally evil, that we should just not even touch them? Or what are your thoughts on credit cards generally?
I mean, I've probably got a few thoughts around them, and I think it depends who you ask as to their view on credit as a whole. I would look at, if I look at what the Bible says around debt. If you just start there, it's more of a theme. It's a wisdom thing, not a salvation thing. So it's just, you know, it's not necessarily this is a deal breaker, but there's lots of scriptural wisdom around debt and how to handle it, and pretty much all of it is showing debt in a negative light. It's saying this is something you want to avoid. Bible verses like the borrower is slave to the lender. You are giving up your income, and often that comes with that your time, your emotions, your thoughts. You are giving up your priority of your money to something and for something. And so it's pretty much all negative or painted in a light that says, look, you should stay away from this. It does say, if you are in a debt arrangement, be faithful and repay it. That's one of the things. But it also talks about Christians and people of faith being a people that are generous and give. And it's very hard, not impossible, but I would argue it's very hard to be abundantly generous if you've already committed most of your income to Visa and to PayPal and to Klarna. So that's probably my starting point. Is I'm not a fan. I don't own a credit card. I don't use it. Some people use it for points and those kind of things. I personally don't. That's where I come from.
You don't even have one, really? Wow.
No, I did have, and I tried to use it the other day for a deposit on. I went mountain biking, and you need to put down a deposit sort of charged to your card of a fair amount of money. And so I thought, I'll just use the credit card, because then it's not really coming in and out of my personal account. But it had expired. So, and it expired 2 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, I haven't used one. I don't buy things on finance generally. I think I obviously have done in the past, but I don't. That's not a proactive thing that I use. Those kind of things. So I'm a little bit out of the loop. If you want to ask me what the best credit card for like points and stuff is, I don't really know the answer. But I guess the thing that for me speaks to that, and the reason why I've made that decision isn't because just someone's told me debt is bad, stay away from it. I have a mortgage, so I'm not averse to borrowing money. But the thing for me is when you sign up to debt, and when you take out a credit card or you put something on finance, you're effectively banking on tomorrow being the same. And you are saying, I can pay for this. I can't pay for it now, but I can pay for it over the next 4 years, say. And you're basically saying my ability, I'm going to be in the same spot today as I am in the future, if not better. And the reality of life, it doesn't always go in an up and to the right trajectory, And so if you pile on your financial world on the assumption that you're just going to be able to keep going, and I can pay it and it's fine, and I take out a car payment and that's okay, and I'll put this, and you've got a large proportion of your income going out, and that the reality is life doesn't always do that, and so your ability to think tomorrow is going to be the same is in my opinion an unwise thing. The Bible talks about we don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. So we need
Yeah.
to trust God for the future, and we need to trust him for our needs.
Yeah.
And if he's saying that to us, then us going, well, we'll just put this on and it'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is a bit of a tension that it doesn't sit very, very well. The other thing for me as well, credit cards wise, is that economically, the whole idea of debt works against you. So the way credit card companies make a lot of money is that they pay interest on what you borrow. So you pay for the privilege, you'll pay a company a little bit more than you've borrowed. What they then do with that money is they go out and invest it a lot of the time. So off of your money, so they're already lending money to you, they're getting more money back. Yeah. And then they're taking the difference and borrowing more and investing it and getting more money. So they are getting very wealthy, credit card companies, because you are paying for them to get rich. And then you aren't getting any further personally in your financial life. Yeah. You're not going anywhere because you're too busy making payments to be able to invest money, to be able to move forwards in your financial life. So often it can mean that people are stuck paying these payments whilst another company is becoming more financially successful from that situation. And so, like you say, it's really easy to get into debt and to make payments and use a credit card and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually very hard because of the way the interest and that kind of stuff works to get out of it. And I used my credit card once, and I remember being this was a few years ago, and I remember the payment to pay it off was missed, and I think I had a 20 quid payment or something, like a charge to the card, which on the face of it, it's like, oh, that's really annoying. But the 20 quid payment was something like the sum total of all the previous year's interest and all of the points that I'd had. Basically, were then it didn't mean anything because I had to pay out 20 quid. And so it's like that's how these companies make money, is just off of your own desire to have something now and not wait for it, but also desire to you make mistakes as human. We're all human, we make mistakes, and so then it's a business, and it works that way. So I don't think credit cards are evil, but for me personally, unwise in their use for things that, like I say, I've got a mortgage to be in a house, and I guess you could use the same arguments that I've said today for that. When I look at my mortgage statement, the amount that I'm going to be paying back to the bank based on what I've borrowed does make me a little bit angry, but it's just the decision you make for being in the position you're in. But that's probably where I put credit cards, not in necessarily in the evil category, but in the, I personally don't use them, and just I guess actually one more thing on that. The other thing that you could probably say with credit cards is it's all too easy to get money. And if we're believers that believe that God can provide, it's very easy to reach for a credit card rather than wait and or pray for God's provision. Come on, and so the idea that just asking yourself, and all of these are sort of questions I guess that people can ask themselves and say, okay, where does this sit with me? But especially in situations where you're going, I need this thing, I need a new car, mine's broken down, I need a new washing machine, and physical needs, or you want to do a course, you feel like this is what you need to do, all that sort of stuff. Are you robbing God of the opportunity to provide for you by just saying, well, I'll figure that one out myself. I'll sort the finance out, God, because there's PayPal will do that for me. Whereas actually we're told to be people that trust God and are told that God is trustworthy and is provider. That's his name. He is provider. And I know I've seen him provide in my life so many times. But then there is this pull of, well, actually, it's way easier almost to just go and take a loan out to do something. But what if God is saying, well, I want to show you that I'm provider. I want to help these people grow and help you provide for that thing. And so then everyone is benefiting, and God is being seen on the earth in the way money works. And because that's part of why I believe that God has such a strong opinion on money, is because it teaches us so much. It's such a tangible way, isn't it, money, of meeting you right where you are. Like your wallet hits you really hard. And so both in positive ways and in And then, if you get an unexpected bill or you've got to pay something. So that's
Joel, you've just gone a second.
Oh, okay, don't.
Are you back? Great. He's
Hang
back.
on, am I back now? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so that's another angle, I guess, on the whole credit card thing is, again, and that's, again, for me, a lot more like, oh, is this interest rate the evil bit, or is borrowing money? It's more about, well, what is the thing behind that thing? And actually, if you're saying, I really believe I should do this, or I want to spend money on this, maybe God's got a way of providing for you. I've read lots of stories of people and heard lots of stories of people as well who need cars, and they pray for them, and someone happens to be moving and gives them a car, and it's and that then is an opportunity that they've had to grow as a person and in their faith, rather than just reaching for a credit card. So it's another thing, I guess, to add to that and ask.
It's really, really good. I love it. And I liked what you said as well about how you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I think this last year and a half has totally shown all of us that.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
And I think that's brilliant. One of the questions just on credit cards that people will probably be asking, though, is this whole thing of credit score. So, if you don't use a credit card, then you don't you're not proving yourself to be someone that people are willing to lend money to. I mean, I don't know if you've got any just final quick thoughts on that at all. I mean, I guess it all comes back to a lot of what you've already said, which is just, making wise decisions really as to what debt you are getting into, because I think sometimes we talk about debt and we often think about, the testimony we heard yesterday of these guys that were in 80 grand's worth of debt and all this, but I guess if you're borrowing a £5 from somebody, you're in debt to them. Do you know what I mean? So excuse me, phone is going at the moment. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah,
there you go. So any final thoughts on just that credit score thing? Because any thoughts on that?
I mean, so often that comes around to people buying houses, and that's sort of like first time buyer credit score kind of worries. What I would say in that instance is the direct debits that you have. So if you've got a direct debit set up with things like a water company, utility company, they all count towards your credit score.
Oh, wow.
Different agreements that you've got in place for your phone, for example, might count towards your credit score. So initially, what I say to people is get a credit score. So there's a score and a report, that two slightly different things. So the score is sort of the number that there's two biggest ones are Equifax and Experian. They're the two biggest companies. They will give you a score, which is an indicator of where that's, how your credit report is or the condition of it. But you can actually request the report underneath that and see all of the different arrangements, see, have they been paid on time? You can see if there's any months where they might have been behind payments, all those kind of things. They factor into the credit report, credit score. So first instance, rather than jumping out and getting a credit card to prove it, is have a look at your credit score and see if it's actually all right based on all of that anyway. There's also other companies, especially this is for sort of first time buyers and people saving for houses, is that there are now companies out there that you basically set up a savings plan. So you commit to, I will give you £100 a month into this savings plan, into this account. And the way that they do that is they do that on an agreement basis rather than a savings account basis. So you're saying it's for all intents and purposes, it's a savings account. But the way it is, every time you do deposit £100, it's a positive mark against your credit rating because of the way they've set the account up. So you can actually stop it at any time. I think you might have to do it for a certain amount of time, maybe 6 months, but you can then stop it and it doesn't negatively impact it. It basically just says, the agreement was done, but it's kind of like a perpetual credit agreement that then means as you're saving, you're building that up. So there are other options to look at potentially to grow your credit score, and that would be good. It could be good if it's not very good. There's ways to do it. So I guess a couple of, maybe a bit long-winded, but a couple of thoughts on it, just on practical things you could do. So check the credit score, see what's what, see if it needs improving. And if it does, there are then other ways that don't necessarily involve getting a credit card, because if you haven't got a good credit score and it's because you've not been great with finance, the worst thing you can do is then take out more to try and make it better. You might want to just have a think about some wise ways to sort of make steps to recover that. So.
I think that this is the thing, isn't it? Because some people watching this may have totally different opinions on credit cards or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, absolutely.
And but like you keep saying, it's not necessarily the credit card or the actual spreadsheet of the budget. It's not the method, but it's about being wise with your money, and it's about like you said, not being in debt with people and planning accordingly. And it's just funny, isn't it? Because I asked the question about credit, getting a good credit score and all that, but the only thing that's going to do is enable you to get into more debt with.
It's like this circle that goes around and around.
Exactly. It's like a spiral, isn't it, for people? And it's very interesting, mate. I'm loving it. Right, we're going to have to speed up because I've got so many more things to ask you.
That's fine. Just fire away, and we'll go from there. You're all good.
I mean, last time, we spoke yesterday a lot about debt with our friends Justin and Sarah, and great testimony in their and they follow the advice of Dave Ramsey, who's very we had a conversation about him earlier, didn't we? And he's quite brutal, if you like, with his attitude as to how to deal with that. But have you got any, just as a quick, simple, we spoke quite a lot on it yesterday, but have you got any simple, quick thoughts on debt and how people can get clear on that? One of the things we kind of learned yesterday was when people are in significant amounts of debt, it can really feel like a huge weight on people. I don't know if you've got any just simple thoughts on that.
Yeah, from a practical perspective, the margin is the key. So the whole thing. So Dave Ramsey is correct in that get out of debt. You can't really move forward if you're paying other people payments. Totally agree with that. There's no point investing money if you're paying interest to someone else. Totally agree with that. All of these things. But from a practical perspective, getting out of debt involves a lot more effort than getting into it. And you really need the ability to spend less than you earn and you have coming in is by and large the only thing that's going to get you out of that beyond something like a bankruptcy, which is a very serious thing. So if there is, if there's a way that you can get out of it through just paying it off, and it sounds like, the people we spoke to yesterday just went all for it. They flipped the switch and it was like, let's just get this done. And so what you then do is a really extreme, you basically make that margin as wide as possible. So you spend as little as you can and earn as much as you can. And the difference, the margin that you've got is you're saying, we're just going to pile that into all of this debt. And so there's ways that you can do that. One of those is called the Debt Snowball, which you might have heard about yesterday, which is debt smallest to largest, pay the little one and just keep going. And that's more of a mental exercise, because what you're doing, as you pay the small ones off, you get more and more confidence and you sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you like, and it gives you more and more confidence. So it's more of an emotional behavioral way to do it. Got it. The other way is more a mathematical way, which is you list them all and you do the highest interest rate first and knock them all that way, which is a mathematical idea that you're paying more in interest. So you're sort of saving yourself less interest. But you might have a really low loan with a high interest rate or a massive loan with a low interest rate. So you actually might be paying more out anyway on a bigger. So there's numbers to sort of play with, but they're the general two ideas: interest rates, highest to lowest, or loans, lowest to highest. As long as you keep minimum payments on all the others, then you can sort of attack one at any given moment. So, but the key to it, like I said, is that margin. So as long as you can be, and you can be as aggressive or as not aggressive, at least little as aggressive as you like, in terms of how big that is. You either keep spending what you're spending and you get out of it slowly, or you get really mad and you just want to move on with your life and you just go to the extremes. And I know Dave Ramsey advocates that beans and rice would be his thing. So you literally don't eat out, you don't see the inside of a restaurant, you don't go on holiday, you don't do anything. But all of that does is just bring down your spending. Then you work over time, or you do what you need to do to get the money, and that you can then put there.
That pretty much sums up the story that we heard yesterday.
I haven't met the people we spoke to yesterday, but that is a common, that would be Dave Ramsey's most likely his way of sort of instilling that fire in people, is just get aggressive and just go for it. And it sounds like the people you did yesterday did an amazing job.
They did.
Yeah, well done to them.
Great job. Okay, so we talked a lot, as I say. I'm gutted that we're running out of time here, but
that's all right.
We can talk another time. There are people that are watching this right now that are not in debt. They don't have any issues with credit cards. They are, they're walking in faith with tithing, and they're generous people. I'd like us to, in the last chunk of time we've got, to talk about investing money and how we do that, what is the, yeah, just over to you, my friend. Any thoughts on how we should invest our money to make more money?
Yes, good. So we're moving beyond now I guess if we follow the train of thought, we've budgeted, or at least we've got an awareness of what's coming in, what's going out, what's left over. We've got out of debt, maybe bar housing, because your mortgage is quite a big one. So generally that's you can sort of let that tick away. But so we're out of debt, we're into a place where now we can use that margin towards something a little bit more productive. In terms of your money, rather than just paying it in payments and figuring it out. So first step before anyone invests is you need to have an emergency fund. So that's a practical thing that you need to have before you start investing, in my opinion. And the reason for that is because when you invest money in any sort of way to maximize how much you can over the long term, it's a long-term play, in my view. So it is a 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years long play. So what you're saying is, I'm going to invest money because actually I want it to grow ahead of everything's going to go up in value over 20 years. Stuff's going to cost more money. I want our money to grow and keep above that. So it's a long-term play. And by nature, there is some risk attached to it. So when I think of investing, I think of sort of stocks and stock market and that kind of world. There are other types, but that's where I'm thinking of. And when you do that, you put your money at some level of risk, and that means it can fluctuate up or down at any given moment. So what you want to do is be able to not touch that for as long as possible until you need it. And if you've got an emergency fund, we all know life happens. We all know the car breaks, the dishwasher blows up, the roof needs replacing, you might lose your job. All of that stuff happens, and it's unexpected. And so if we can prepare now for the unexpected, we can turn something that could be a horrifying financial event into something that is a bit of a minor inconvenience, but at least we've got the money to get there. Because what you don't want to do when you start investing is, an emergency fund is common sense whether you're investing or not, but especially when it comes to investing, you want to be able to say, okay, something's happened, I need money. Do I have a buffer of money that means I don't initially have to run to the things that are potentially I need to leave alone? So things like COVID-19 happens and a pandemic happens and I lose my job for a little bit, I'm put on furlough, I need some money. If you've got investments, what you want to minimize as much as possible is touching them at a time when everything is being thrown for a loop. So if you can provide that buffer, then that is the strongest place to be.
Got it.
So for that, the general prescription is 3 to 6 months of expenses. So whatever that looks like for you in your position. Obviously, you can go above that. If you're self-employed and if you lost your job tomorrow, that's it. There's no more income coming in. Then I would potentially advocate for a higher emergency fund, because by nature there's a little bit of risk there. If you're the opposite, if you're employed and it's really stable, then maybe a bit less, but you can do more. I met someone once that had 2 years worth of expenses in an emergency fund.
Sorry, pal. You're back. Yeah, go on.
That's all right. Yeah. Who had 2 years worth of expenses in an emergency fund, and that that for me is excessive, but ultimately it was what they needed to feel. Okay, if this happened, I'd feel like I was covered. So general thoughts are 3 to 6 months of expenses. And then you can begin to invest. And investing, when I talk about investing, I am not talking about, let's just go, Apple's doing really well, let's just smash some money into their stocks. I don't think about single stocks. I don't work in that world. So when I advise people, it's never in this company's doing really well, let's jump on that bandwagon. It's not on crypto's doing really well, let's just invest in cryptocurrency. It's about well-researched, long-term, big portfolios of lots of companies across lots of different areas, very wisely done, so you can manage the risk as much as you can. But the ultimate aim is it's long term, and it's because we want the money to grow over the long term, slow, steady, consistent, not I'm going to be able to retire by the end of the year because I'm going to make so much, because those promises never ring true. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, that's where I would say. And if someone is thinking about investing, then that is in that sort of serious way, or they have investments and it's like, okay, what do I do with them, or all of that kind of stuff. More than happy to have a conversation, but that would be the starting point would be, okay, let's check you've got an emergency fund, and then let's talk about constructing something that is managed well over the long term. We're not going to talk about shooting the lights out so that tomorrow we're going to have loads of money. That's not really what I'm about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really good. The whole kind of thing of get quick rich just doesn't exist, I guess.
Yeah.
I think one of the great things that seems to be a thread through our whole conversation today, which is just quite simply having a long-term attitude with finances. And I guess this really finally kind of touches on things like pensions and also things like having a will, and stuff like that. As you move forward in life, really considering, and also things like saving money for your kids and even for your grandkids, and again, we live in this world where it's just very self-focused on me and now. And like we've already said, you just have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring, and therefore making decisions today can make a massive impact on what happens. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts just on that, on just pensions, a will, saving money for your children. Any last bits of gold? It's great what you're sharing.
All really good things. So pensions, saving money for kids, wills, they're all really important part. I think there's a balance when it comes to money. There's a balance in scripture as well. Of you have verses like in Matthew where it's like, look at the birds. Look, if God can take care of the birds, He's going to totally take care of you. I'm using Joel Stevens' paraphrased version of the Bible, but look at the birds. He's going to take care. He takes care of them. How much more is He going to take care of you? So we've got that right. We understand that God has got our needs nailed down. Like He's going to provide. But then on the flip side of that, you get verses that are like, in Proverbs, consider the ant. Look at this tiny little insect. He stores his food in summer. Like off his own back, he takes his abundance and makes sure he doesn't use it all up now. Again, my paraphrase version. But you've got this tension between God is going to provide absolutely everything that we need, but then there's also an expectation that we don't just consume everything now, and we manage it and we use it. And if God can trust us with unrighteous wealth, would be a scripture way of putting it, or He can trust us with the stuff on this planet and on this earth, how much more then can He trust us with true riches and the things that He can then impact this earth with? And obviously money is one of those. And so pensions is a way of doing that, of not consuming everything now but saving it for later. So a pension really is just a bucket of money with some rules attached to it, but the idea is it's designed to fund your later life. So having an eye on the future, if we talk about that, is again a good tool to be able to do that. So if you've got one with work, definitely be using it. If you're self-employed and you don't have one at all, definitely consider putting one in place. Those kind of things, because it's about keeping an eye on the future. Again, saving for your children, leaving a legacy for your children. All of those kind of things are about having an eye on the future. And saying, what do I want that to look like? Because if we use it all now, down the road, I actually might want to give them money at some point. I might want to save for my children. I might want to save for my grandchildren. I might want to do that. But if I use it all now, I can't. So it's that balance of God's going to provide everything we need for today, but then there is a responsibility attached to that to manage it. So saving for things definitely a good thing to do. If it's long term, again, think about investments rather than just putting it in a bank account. But that's a discussion that I'm happy to have with people, short term versus long term. And a will, again, I don't really have any biblical basis for it, but just a common sense thing to do, especially if you have children. Often a trigger point for people getting a will is starting a family, because when you have children, it's super important so you have a will in place. Because if anything were to happen to you, then you don't want there to be any question marks about who or what is providing for your children. So it removes all of those question marks. It makes everything easier. If you don't have children, then it's still a necessary thing. But I guess just if there's people listening that are going, oh yeah, I've got a young family, or I've got a family with kids that I'm looking after, that is something definitely to go, right, this is a point at which, major trigger point. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on all of the above. But that's where I come from, is helping people figure their money out, but in line with what really matters, what they want to do, where they want to go in life. And just matching those two things up, because it's important that we have money is given to us as a resource. It is a tool. It comes with, money is just numbers at the end of the day. We are the ones that assign meaning to it, goals to it, and all of that really is our life, and how we choose to live it. So that's where I'm at with money. I hope that's been helpful. If there's anything else you want to ask, feel free. But
absolutely, it's been absolutely brilliant, Joel. Do you know what I mean? I just think I just love your attitude towards it. I think the whole linking life to how you handle your money is just so key in everything that we've been looking at this week. And it's such a, and I think it's such a massive subject, and we've only just touched. We've only just scraped the surface, really. And so many, and the thing is as well is that so many people are in different situations with different things going on. But I just love everything that you've shared. You said that people can contact you if needed. So you are on Instagram. Can you just tell us what your handle is for that?
Instagram is Joel Stevens IFA. I'm on there. I'm Facebook as well. Joel Stevens Financial Planner. If you search that on there, feel free to get in touch. There's details like my email and telephone number and stuff on there as well, if you need to. Definitely.
That's great. Just so much gold you've shared with us today, man. I just really want to say, really appreciate
no problem
taking time out of your schedule to look at this. And there are so many other things that we could talk about, but I think we've done pretty well in the last hour.
Hopefully that's been helpful. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to get, like you said, money is such a huge topic. Everyone is different. Everything lands different with different people. They're all in different places. We're all, and I'm learning all of this stuff. This isn't, I don't sit here as someone that has absolutely mastered how to budget. It changes every month. Or someone that has, been there, done it, seen it. Actually, I'm learning this every time you get paid, every time you spend money. It's all a learning decision on how to manage it and that kind of stuff. So
I think that's a really good point to end on, actually, is the fact that some people may be listening to this today or listening to some of the stuff we put out this week, and they're just taking a deep breath and they're just thinking, oh my word, where do I start? Because it is, as you said, one of the things I loved that you brought through today is it is about attitude, it is about mindset, it is about kind of changing the way you think. And so I would just encourage anyone that is watching this that's thinking, man, I wish I was like Joel Stevens, he's got it sorted.
Be careful what you wish for.
Is to think, actually it starts with just actually some small decisions to change in the way you think about what you want to do with your life, really, at the end of the day. So
small.
Go on.
I was just going to say, small decisions. Start with where you are. If you do feel like that, start with where you are with what you have, and just follow. Start with one step, then another step, and another step, and it just will sort of come together as time goes on. You don't need to have it all figured out. I don't think anyone does. So.
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Joel. That's been
all
amazing. Guys that are watching, tomorrow we have got a live question and answer session with Rob Sherwin. So anything that we haven't covered, you can ask Rob tomorrow and he'll have all the answers. But for today, Joel, thanks so much for being with us. It's really
no worries.
And take care, guys. We'll see you soon. All right, bye.
See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.